no matter how painful it might be, and no BS. Citizen Smith, Citizen Smith, Citizen Smith.
Here's a man who would not take it anymore. A man who stood up against the scum, the dogs, the filth. Here is someone who stood up.
It's time for Citizen Smith.
Good morning, everybody. This is Citizen Smith for show number 110 here at Portland Podcast PDX in the beautiful state of Oregon. I'm trying to let the friggin' train go by before I talk much more. We got a train going by. We got jackhammers outside. Hey, welcome to my studio. Alrighty, let's talk about the Olympics. We're going to have a movie review today, too. Pig and Anthony Bourdain's documentary, Road Runner. That later in the show. First, I'd like to talk about Canada. Did you know it's okay now? Soon we will be able to go to Canada. They haven't been allowing that for over a year.
Yep.
August 9th. Tourists will be allowed into the Great North. The 5,500-mile border will be opened to travelers from the United States as they finally let us enter their countryside. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said, quote, "We are very pleased to gradually and responsibly open up." Wow, they move slow up there. It's about time. I mean, I understand concerns for safety, but Canada really goes slow with their governmental moves. So if you want to go to Canada, you have to show evidence that you've proved either that you have a negative coronavirus test taken within 72 hours of your arrival in Canada, beginning August 9th, and also be able to prove that you were vaccinated. So I'm pretty sure I got this correct then, right? So let's just be clear on this. American citizens, I'm using the Wall Street Journal article here. American citizens and permanent residents will need to provide proof of their full vaccination status with their last dose administered at least 2 weeks before their arrival and must not have COVID symptoms. Well, okay, yeah. They also will be required to present evidence of an approved negative coronavirus test taken within 72 hours of your arrival in the country. All this beginning August 9th. The Canadian border has been closed to most Americans since March 2020. And you can also bring unvaccinated children under 12 with you, if you have any. So, there you go. Think a lot of people are going to be flowing over the border in August? I don't know.
Oh, Canada. I'm down.
Wow. March 20th. You know, there are people like to have family members. Everybody who lives along the border has been like waving to their family members over the border, like just a few feet even. And they weren't able to visit their cousins and uncles or grandparents. You know, there's a lot of that cross-border relationship going on in the border communities. It's over 5,000 miles of American communities and Canadian communities that live side by side, and they've mixed over the decades, and they have family members. Kind of interesting, wouldn't it, if you took a trip along the very northern border of America and Canada and drove through all the different communities. You see a lot of French influence, right, as you get towards the northeast side. And I've driven along the Canadian border in certain areas, but never the entire, because you always take the main roads and they're far from the borders. But that would be an interesting trip to see how each community lives and how they each coexist, the spillover from one country to the other, economically, culturally, and family. Documentary, I think, in the making there. Also, the Olympics are underway as we speak. Did you know that? I
did not know that.
Softball teams were playing yesterday. America and Italy. I don't know how we were up 1-0 when I stopped watching it.
I'm sure we beat Italy.
Well, yeah.
You got to be able to beat Italy. I'm all about hockey right now, so I'm not even thinking about that.
The Olympics also had a soccer game. The women, U.S. and Sweden. And the U.S. lost decisively. Sweden beat us 3-0. Uh-oh. That doesn't portend well for the U.S. soccer team. So the Summer Olympics are actually underway. The opening will be this Friday. And Tokyo is doing their best to deal with a backlash of COVID outbreaks. Athletes at the village have tested positive. I think the last number was like 72 or something in the area have COVID tested positively. Some teams are so nervous. The U.S. Olympic gymnastic team is going to stay in a hotel, not the Olympic Village, which is kind of a bummer.
Yeah, it's kind of a bummer.
I mean, the whole experience is, to be in the village with the other athletes and sharing time together and meeting other athletes from around the world, but not the U.S. Olympic team. The gals are going to be in the hotel quarantining themselves for the most part until they perform.
Room service.
That's a bummer. The U.S., the Tokyo Olympics is taking a hit by $20 billion, they say. $20 billion they expect to lose, which they say is less than 1% of their economic output for revenues that comes in. But still, that's pretty bad. I hate to see the city and the country take such a bath financially from this, but they did the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, said they were the best prepared city ever for the Olympics, because you expect that from the Japanese. They're very efficient, of course we expect them to be prepared, but they're dealing with the COVID. They're worried about a big super spreader coming from the event. No fans be allowed, as we mentioned. And Toyota, the number one biggest company in Japan, will not even be running a sponsorship ad. They ran one about the Olympics coming to Tokyo and spent millions of dollars on that ad in the Super Bowl. Hey, it's coming to Tokyo, the Olympics, get ready, everybody. Now they said, well, due to the sensitivity of the Olympics, and a lot of Japanese are like, we shouldn't be doing this, Toyota will not be running a Tokyo 2020 Olympic ad in the TV commercials, which are the largest generator of revenue for the International Olympic Committee. Over 73% of their budget comes from commercials generated from the television broadcasting advertisements of the Olympics. So it will be a heavily watched television event because nobody can go. So you can bet your ass that they're going to have great viewership. Some people say, though, the spirit of the Olympic Games just won't be there because of the lack of fans, the worry about COVID. I wonder, even the Olympic head from Tokyo said he's not opposed to shutting down the Olympics if the COVID virus starts to spread uncontrollably or they feel that it's out of control and they can't get a handle on it. He'll shut it down. As this drama unfolds behind the scenes at the Olympics, let's cross our fingers that Friday is the Olympic beginning and it does not end, and we have some great performances. I love the Olympics. I think they did the right thing having it. I think it's important to the athletes from around the world who have prepared for 4 years for this to have an opportunity to show their talents. And I think the world could use it too. We need some entertainment in the summertime. The Olympics is one of the great events in sports, and it's going to be exciting. We've got the best sprint team ever from the United States performing in this Olympics. And I can't wait to see how we do. Because we haven't been the most dominant force as we have in the past, but now We have a chance to dominate in the sprints. I look forward to the swimming events, the gymnastics. I'm not looking forward to the basketball.
Yeah, we've been getting our asses kicked in basketball in these warm-up games. We lost to Nigeria. The men lost to Nigeria.
I don't know what's going on.
The
with
women
the
lost to
team.
Australia.
Yeah. Soccer and basketball. I don't even know if I agree with having those sports in the Olympics because it's all, you got professional players coming in and playing. It's supposed to be amateur. It's supposed to be an amateur event of people that, prepare for this event for their career, like in track. I like the traditional sports, track, swimming, and then, of course, gymnastics. And then you've got the powerlifting and wrestling. These are traditional, non-commercial type of Olympic sports. And then you throw in basketball and softball. I just can't get in. Baseball. I think they overextended themselves with all these extra team sports that are paid professionals, and it kind of takes away from the overall competitive feel of amateur sports.
I like the fact that skateboarding is a sport this year.
It is?
Yeah, skateboarding. I wonder how many of those guys are going to get, docked for smoking weed. I'm just saying.
Well, they're not going to smoke it at the Olympic events. They can hold out for 2 weeks, I think.
Stuff stays in your system for 30 days.
I wonder what the world competition looks like in skateboarding. It's like outside of America. How popular is it?
Probably it's very popular. I just watched the X Games this past weekend, and that was kick-ass. But, yeah, a lot of long
Who
hairs.
are the powerhouses for the international countries in skateboarding?
Well, I'd have to look at their rosters. I don't know who's going to the Olympics. I don't know who's
I would say
going.
like Germany, France, England, all countries with skateboarding. Australia. Canada's probably got a big skateboarding
yeah, there's a lot of Canadians.
community. Oh, that'd be interesting. I'm curious to see how they stage the events and what teams. I'd like to see how it took off around the world because America, I assume, was the birthplace of skateboarding competition.
Southern California,
You got that right.
Lords of Dogtown, bro. Well, I got dizzy for a second.
Hey, since we're on the sporting side of talk right now, you're watching closely the Kraken draft picks, and not the draft picks, but
This is the
they're picking
expansion
from the professional teams. They get 2 players from every NHL team.
Yeah, they go through. They, every team has to have so many players on the unprotected list, and then Seattle had a certain amount of time they can negotiate with those players. And then today at 5:00, they're going to have a big hoopla. Guys like Jerry Bruckheimer are going to be there because he's a part owner, from Hollywood, and so they're going to have this big hoopla. There's going to be all kinds of stars there to help announce the picks. They're going to have like Sue Bird there, a bunch of ex-Sonics. They're going to have Lenny Wilkins, I heard, is showing up. So GM Ron Francis has been salivating for this moment for a very, very long time, and we'll have a little podcast on it here later today on Gloves Off, Sticks Down. But
Hey,
what?
Hey,
what?
This is the debut show of Gloves Off, Sticks Down.
Yeah.
Are you going to maintain it weekly as the host?
Yeah, we're going to do updates probably more than once a week. And it won't be a long form, 2-hour podcast or anything. It'll just be...
Except when the season starts.
Yeah, when the season starts, we'll have a full-on show, but we're going to do like 15-minute live updates and things like that throughout the week. Pretty stoked. I'm excited. I love hockey.
Well, the question is, will the people from Oregon and Portland gravitate to Seattle as a fan base?
I think so. It's already starting to happen. Plus, the Winterhawks are still in full force here, and that's WHL. And they just got a new logo and all kinds of stuff. And
how popular is high school hockey in Oregon?
Well, there's no high school teams per se.
They don't have a high school league.
No, and the junior Winterhawks have a nice league, and they have a nice competitive hockey program. They go all over the country. My son played there. Both my sons played there. But they had a high school league for a while, and then it kind of just went away. But there's a lack of ice here. There's only, I think, one ice center now, and that's in Beaverton. The one in Vancouver's gone. The one in Sherwood is gone. So maybe we'll see somebody donate a rink or two. That's what you need. Yeah,
with the Kraken now as an NHL affiliate in Seattle, you could see the Portland area develop youth leagues that will gravitate to the rinks because of a professional team they follow. It happens everywhere.
Yeah, I think the Kraken are dedicated to providing money for the Northwest in general. Not just Washington, but Oregon and Idaho as well.
Yeah, and I don't know how it happened in Tampa Bay since they became a powerhouse and won back-to-back Stanley Cup championships.
Mm-hmm.
When you go to Tampa Bay, do you find youth hockey leagues sprung up?
Yeah, actually, when Chase played for the junior Winterhawks,
Your son.
Yeah, when he was, I think he was a Bantam B. They played a team from Tampa Bay. They played the Junior Lightning. They kicked their ass too. But the Junior Lightning were pretty decent, and but you could tell what regions have better hockey at that age group.
I'm a little surprised that Oregon isn't a little more developed in its hockey, but now with the professional team in Seattle, I could see hockey. It's a great sport.
Yeah, it's taking some hits
here. I don't
here.
understand why areas in Florida could develop and not Oregon, because we border almost the Canadian area,
Right.
Even though it's British Columbia side, but. I'll be curious to see how the Kraken expands its fan base from Washington to Oregon. It will happen. Mm-hmm. It's just a matter of how much will it happen. And even guys like you, who are transplants from Washington and now living in Oregon, there's a lot of that, too, going on here. And so I'll be curious. I assume that the stadium's going to be sold out, right? There'll just be the initial... hockey is here for Seattle and Northwest.
Yeah. I think that's the seats are going to be pretty expensive. The waiting list is. I know people who are 10,000th on the waiting list for season tickets. It's just it's going to be pretty nutty. So if you can get a ticket, I say go see the game.
So how good is the team going to be after this? After their draft picks, after the picks they make from other teams, which they can take two players that are available, not any two they want.
Yeah, there's going to be a little bit of stuff.
So that is underway, right? How many players have they picked?
So right now, I've been following a little bit some announcements that have been made. Looks like Larson from the Edmonton Oilers. He's a big defenseman. He's going to be signed. We also have. Looks like we're going to have a goalie. They're passing on Carey Price from Montreal. Too expensive. He'll hit the cap too much, but it looks like Chris Dreider.
Too expensive, too old. He's like 37 years old.
I think he's 34.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Still old for a goalie.
35, somewhere in there.
They need a goalie.
Yeah, so Chris Dreider from the Florida Panthers is a fantastic goalie. He's an unrestricted free agent. Looks like they have signed him. That announcement's coming down the pipe. I keep following some of my buddies on Twitter. What's going down. But tonight, 5 o'clock, ESPN2, they'll have the big party, big announcements.
What do you mean a big party, big announcement?
For the Kraken. So they'll have all the expansion draft.
So they're going to do like a special feature on
there's going to be all the stars there. Marshawn Lynch, Sue Bird, Gary Payton, all these people from Seattle are going to be there.
Oh, all right. Very
Ron Francis,
I shall watch it. So, all right, very good. And hockey has arrived in the Great Northwest.
Yes, it has. Fantastic.
And... they have a great logo. I assume they'll be marketing it as a Northwest team, or are they going to really try to be Seattle's team?
Seattle. They're going to be Seattle. All the way they are Seattle. I got to tell you.
Well, I don't know. I look at it from a wider regional perspective. Hockey has arrived in the North. The NHL has arrived in the Northwest.
I agree with you as well. I think it'll be, but it's unlike, Arizona where they're the Coyotes. The Arizona Coyotes, not the Phoenix Coyotes, but it's a Seattle Kraken for sure.
All right, very good.
Yay!
And that wraps up our sports talk today for Citizen Smith.
We love hockey.
Staying on top of the local issues, first of all, we've got that wildfire going on at the bootleg fire down in the southern Klamath area of Oregon. That's just out of control. It's up over 300,000 acres now and over 500 square miles, and it's creating its own weather patterns. And they don't see any end in sight. There's no rain.
Yeah, and it's like only 24% contained. So
they need this thing just keeps growing. They say it's kind of at a point where it can't get any worse. Well, I don't know. If it keeps going, it'll get worse. There's no way around. The conditions that are ideal for this major wildfire that's going on, and the smoke is inundating parts of the country all the way to the East Coast. That's amazing. And I just wonder, like, about the wildlife, too. Can you imagine the wildlife that must be destroyed and burned in this situation? And if you're a bear and you're running for your life in this thing and you're trying to get the hell out of there, how do you outrun the fire?
That'd make for a good movie.
They never categorize or catalog the destruction to wildlife because it's pretty hard to do, I guess. But I'd be curious to see what kind of toll it takes on the birds, on the deer, on the bears, and all of the mammals that are within that fire zone must be just annihilated. It's just tragic. And a lot of orphaned animals. It's kind of the quiet little story that nobody really covers because, you're always worried about the human toll and houses and things that mean more direct impact to human beings. I'd like to see some facts and figures about, the wildlife and ecological toll. They say that the wildfires open up a different type of ecology after it, and new plants grow and this and that. But what about the toll it took on the existing wildlife that lived in those areas of the, pretty much a wilderness for Oregon? That's where I always think, I just wonder what happens in that area for animals and wildlife. But so we'll keep an eye on that. But they say they can't control that fire unless they get some rain. Like not just a few hours, a few days of ongoing rain coming down. And that ain't in the forecast. We all love our sunshine, but we got a major drought. This fire is the result of a drought and dry soil and arid ground.
Overgrowth. Lots of brush. Yeah, it's nasty out there.
And this is all a direct result of lack of rain, lack of snow melt. And I'm looking at the weather forecast for the next 7 days, and ain't no rain there. And in fact, we're having another big heat wave coming. Not for next Thursday and Friday, we're looking at over 90 degrees. Saturday's going to be over 90 degrees. And then next Thursday and Friday over 90 degrees. So we got another sporadic heat wave coming to us here in the Portland area. Keep an eye out for that. All right, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the homeless issue that we've been following in Portland. 70 spots are now being eyed to create 6 safe rest villages in the city of Portland. That's what they're calling them. And Dan Ryan, who's overseeing this for the city commissioner, Dan Ryan. So they have 70 sites they got to go sift through and build these 6 covered shelters for sleeping for the homeless rather than tents like they have been, and having services like bathrooms, showers, social services on site. They refer to a place called Kenton Women's Village as an example of how it should be done for the men and the future sites for the women as well for the homeless. I don't know what the percentages of women that are homeless. I know they're a minority. When you walk the streets, you see them, but I would say it's at least 70% men that are homeless. But the women are out there. I would think they could at least have enough rooms for women at this point in the game. If they're just, their numbers can't be so exorbitant that they can't find homes for them and shelters that are in place. Or maybe one woman I read an interview said she just didn't want to leave her tent for one of these shelters. She says it's like being in a prison. That's their, mentality about a tent. So they got to try to make these things so they don't feel like prisons. There aren't so many restrictions that they feel hold up because they're not used to that. So that adjustment has to be done too to kind of accommodate their psyche of not being in a prison or such a controlled environment that they feel like they don't have freedoms, right? So those are the challenges that they sift through 70 spots throughout the city, Portland, to find 6 shelters, which the $250 million of taxes they'll be taking in every year from corporate and higher income wages should pay for and be built. Within the next year or two, at least 6 should be built. All right, with that said, let's finish with today's movie reviews. First, my movie review for Pig, which I saw at the wonderful Cinemark Movies in 82nd Avenue, which is my favorite place to watch movies. And I've discovered the Regal Cinemas downtown, but I find the Cinemark ones are very small stadium seating, big screen. I saw this on. Not too many people attended this one on a Saturday afternoon that I went. Pig, starring Nicolas Cage, filmed in Oregon, in Portland. So he plays this truffle hunter, kind of a older, gruffled, grizzly, I should say, bearded guy with his female truffle pig, truffle hog, out in the wilderness of Oregon. And suddenly things change when his pig is kidnapped. And not only is the pig a truffle hunter for him, but it's also part of him as a family living in the wilderness.
I've heard good things.
Nicolas Cage goes out into the city, back to the city where it comes out, you find, was a famous chef at one time. And this gradually emerges as the story develops. Not too much of a spoiler, a little bit. Anyway, where it goes from there is quite different than you might expect. It's very much an allegorical movie and storyline, even with the dark underbelly of the world of chefs in Portland and cuisine, from a exotic salted baguette that he gets from a woman he knew, and to a fight night type of place underground where chefs can battle it out and fist fight. Really weird shit. I wasn't seeing the movie go that way. I was expecting the movie to be more of a traditional, he's trying to find his pig. It was about truffles, and it is a lot different than what you might think. It's very much a kind of a strange, weird storyline of a Nicolas Cage type of movie you might expect in his career. He seems to take those kind of roles. And I had kind of mixed feelings about the movie. It's always fun to see a movie that's filmed in the city you're living in. And I did appreciate the scenery that was Portland. But I don't know if I wholeheartedly give it my full bag rating of popcorn, which is my best rating. I will give it a 3/4 bag of popcorn. It's not going to appeal to everybody. But as an Oregonian living in Portland, you'll probably want to see it just for the backdrop of Portland itself that he spends much of the time in during the movie. Directed by Michael Sarnowski and written by Vanessa Block and story by two other people that were involved. Michael Sarnowski as well writing it. So their screenplay, very different. Next, Anthony Bourdain's Road Runner, which is a documentary about his life. Of course, you have the backdrop that he killed himself, hung himself in France. The former author of Kitchen Confidential, and very riveting documentary. Great backstories and interviews with people he knew, and directed by Morgan Neville, and was utilizing a lot of CNN coverage during his work there on his show on Parts Unknown. Prior to that was Travel Channel's. I knew I was going to space.
No Reservations?
Yeah, No Reservations, which they didn't mention in the documentary. I thought was a little interesting. It's kind of like they had a fighting feud. CNN took the show from Travel Channel. It is produced by CNN Films. And that was interesting. So they had access to all the footage during the filming of Parts Unknown, which was a great show, and took it to a higher level than he did at the Travel Channel, which Anthony Bourdain always kind of was snide remarks about his previous network. But it's a great documentary. Of course, it's kind of sad because going in to watch it, you know that it's going to be about a man who hung himself, and tragically so, with a child, and it got into his wife's relationship, who they never really divorced, and she was Italian. Then he had got into a relationship later with an Italian actress, And that was a part of the documentary near the end that didn't go in depth, but she was caught with a boyfriend while she was dating Anthony Bourdain in one of the tabloids, which they say pushed him into a manic state of humiliation that led to what they think was the cause of his manic behavior that led to his hanging himself. But they didn't go into great depth about that because this is more about how he developed as a writer first and his cooking career and his addictions to heroin and then his stardom and the breakup of his first wife, long-term wife. I think they said they were together for 30 years. But I love the back footage, behind-the-scenes shots of him talking and how he lived and shot the movies. They also used an AI voiceover in a few quotes, which people question whether that's an ethical thing to do, and I think it's unethical. I could tell when his voice was, they took excerpts of little pieces of his voices and put it together to create the AI voiceover for the few quotes that they wanted to use as voiceovers that they didn't get naturally from Bourdain during his life. I don't think it's right to do that with a dead person and impersonate something he said. And when you listen to it, I have an eye for and I have an ear for audio, and you can tell. I could tell when they did it. You know, it just sounded different and didn't sound natural. The documentary filmmaker didn't get into why he did it or the ethical boundaries that he crossed. He just said, we'll leave that for discussion for some other people at another time. So it's an hour and 58 minutes long, filled with footage of the star throughout his decades in career as a celebrity chef, journalist, and TV personality. And I highly recommend it. I just enjoyed it. I want to see it again, pick up on things I might have missed. Anthony Bourdain was one of my favorite people on TV, and I loved his show. And in 2018, when he killed himself, I was in Beijing and working in media, and I was just floored like everybody. And the interviews with the people that knew him is just fantastic. Morgan Neville did a great job of compiling all the footage that he gathered. I think this is a really difficult documentary to make, and I think he nailed it and did it as best you could with respect to the late Anthony Bourdain and his family and his daughter. So I recommend it highly. It gets my best rating. A full bag of popcorn with butter. See it, Roadrunner. It's playing at the Regal Cinemas in their art house theaters there that they have. They have two locations. One, they favor art house films, and it was a great venue to watch it in as well. That does it for today's show. I'm Citizen Smith. Have a great day. We will talk again tomorrow.